My name's Nick Burrell. I'm one of the co-founders here at CleverTouch, and I'll go through a little bit of my background as we go through this session this afternoon, because rightly or wrongly or coincidentally, I've had a career that's involved data to some extent or another. And data is something that fills our lives today in all different angles. We can't hide from it. It's there, and from a marketing perspective, it's even more important. This is an example of where data is being used successfully. This is Bloodhound. I don't know if anybody is aware of this, but this is a car that's being trialled at the moment out in South Africa with a view to breaking the world land speed record sometime next year. So it's doing trials about 650 miles an hour at the moment. And it downloads a gigabyte of data a second to analyze the car's performance. Virtually every moving part is monitored. The engine is obviously monitored, and the driver is monitored as well. So we really use data to enhance their chances of breaking this world record. And more than that, they believe that they can go on to run this car at over 1,000 miles an hour. And the team believe that the analytics element of what they're doing is actually fundamental for making those changes. Yes, it looks like a mechanical type of production, but it's surprising how data is actually fundamental to helping them break the land speed record next year, hopefully. However, when you get access to data comes responsibility to use it wisely, and you've got to use it wisely and intelligently, or bad things can happen. And so we do have to keep in mind, if you understand data and you have got responsibilities to access it, use it wisely, because bad things can happen to your country otherwise. No more election or Brexit talk this afternoon, I promise. So marketing and data. Well, we've got a bit of a checkered history, really. Marketeers, almost by default, by the nature of who we are, haven't really got a strong affinity to analytics and to data. Marketeers tend to be creative types, tend to use their imagination and come up with new ideas regularly. Data analysts, on the other hand, tend to be a little bit more pragmatic, logical, and prefer programs to pros. And so it's not the most natural of bedfellows. But over the last 5 or 10 years, we've had to get together because both of our working lives have depended on it. So 11 years ago actually, when we started CleverTouch, data wasn't at the forefront of our minds. Adam and I came from an IT background. We recognized that a lot of technology was evolving and moving towards supporting marketing systems, marketing automation platforms, etc. And that was where our background was very much was marketeers within the IT industry. But very quickly we realized that we were going to have to become very au fait with digital marketing and managing data, because at the time, this is 11 years ago, your typical marketing database was held in one of these. In fact, many of these. And so, marketeers were quite comfortable with spreadsheets. It's easy to add data, it's easy to amend the data, it's easy to delete the data, it's very easy to send it on to someone else. But, if we were trying to create some rigor around our marketing, we don't want anybody amending the data, deleting the data, sending it on to somebody else. We need to have a single source of marketing knowledge. So this was the challenge that we had. Now, fortunately, Adam and I worked at IBM together, and we were actually in the software business. And part of our role was to look after what we term today as business intelligence tools. Back then, they were called things like decision support systems or executive information solutions. Now, those don't trip over the tongue. In fact, actually, when I first started there, I said, what's the difference between the two? And I was told it's about £150,000. That's typical IBM for you. So things have moved on, and before we go into the nitty-gritty, I just want to show you my holiday photos. So, sorry. This is a beautiful photograph, nice and clear. There's a lot of detail there. We'll forget about the 12-hour journey it took to get there, the lost luggage along the way, and the deli belly that accompanied this photograph. But it's a nice photo. So I want you to imagine that this is actually the utopian view of your CRM database. It's clear, you can understand what's going on, and it's all very, very pleasant to look at. But in reality, most of our marketing databases today have bits missing, or things that don't look quite right, or frankly, they're just wrong. And so getting that view is actually quite hard. And even if it is perfect, the chances are we're probably missing a key bit of information. Something isn't there to allow us to really see the whole picture. So some of these challenges are what we see every day. And then even if you've got the view that you want to have, many tools and reports allow you to see the data, but then it just generates the next question. Why is that there? What's there? And we really want to drill down and see what's ugly and what's wrong, as well as what's right. So marketing databases have come a long way, but they've still got a ways to go. And you'll hear from Integrate shortly after about how they can help with that cleansing and preparing that data at the point of entry and making that access, that data, a little bit clearer. I'm going to come on to the whole digital journey now, and where we actually sit within this, and the role that data plays as we transform our businesses into a digital environment. There's a number of reasons why we need to do this, and this is a section that we often take clients through as we begin their journey. So we need to understand the business reasons. Why are we doing this? What's the competitive landscape like? What is the current state? Where are we today, and where do we want to get to? And can we take the team and the skills with us? In fact, I was just speaking to some people outside beforehand. It's not just your team, but it's the business. It's the sales team, it's operations, it's compliance. It's all sorts of different people that have to come along with you on this journey. So it's a very, very broad-based decision-making unit in this space. And then we've got to understand, how do we implement this technology? What does our marketing stack look like? Where does the data reside? How do they interact with each other? All of these are questions that we can't answer on their bounds, because every business is different, and they will treat the way that these products interact in slightly different ways. The ultimate benefit is to be able to get back and showcase your marketing achievements and understand the real ROI of what we do. In the world of B2B, that is particularly hard, where we've got multiple touch points over fairly long periods of time. It's very, very hard to get that attribution to a point where we all know that it was this particular event, it was that particular email, it was that particular sales call that made the difference. And reality is, they probably all have a part to play. And so then, do you start weighting them, or do you start giving some more credence than others? Again, it's a difficult choice, and it varies by organization, by industry, by product. So if we're looking at the spine, apologies for Fred over here, it looks like he could do a meal. It's what do I really need? What do I need to build out to make my digital marketing successful? Why do I need it? Where am I going to get it from? How much is it going to cost? How do I deploy it? What skills do I need, both in-house and with partnerships? Once it's in place, how do I optimize it? How do I get most out of this investment, so I can go back to the board and can go back to people and justify the expense and the time and the effort we've taken to get there. Now, so we've done over the 11 years at IBM, at CleverTouch, I was 12 years at IBM, and for my sins. We've seen so many implementations of marketing technology, probably over 500 customers over those 11 years. And we see an awful lot of frustrations when these things go in, because it's changing people's roles, it's changing people's jobs, it's sometimes making people, frankly, making them obsolete and redundant. But that's changed. It creates lots of new opportunities and new jobs as well. You have to be prepared to adapt. But taking those individuals with you is one of the most important elements of the whole change management scenario. So if you think of the spine, we're looking at several key technologies to underpin this. At the top is a content management system. That effectively is your website, the interactions with it. A marketing automation platform where your marketing data will reside and sit connected to a CRM system, and giving us that seamless integration between what sales are doing and what marketing are up to. And then a visualization layer. Both Marketo and Salesforce, for example, have got very good in-platform reporting capabilities. They're second to none in many respects. But even Salesforce recognized earlier on this year that wasn't quite enough, and so they went out and bought Tableau. And Tableau is not only a very good SaaS profitable business, it also filled a significant need for Salesforce to allow them to be able to get this visualization layer across the whole of their marketing stack. Once you've got the spine in, then you can begin to build out some of the other elements that will enhance your marketing activity. And as we know, there's literally hundreds of Martech tools out there. Some of them are there to support your marketing and lead generation activity. Others are there to help you become more efficient and effective marketeers. So, for example, Percolate, for content management, allows you to really see across the business and standardize and become much more coherent in terms of the way that you manage content. Seismic, on the other hand, is a sales enablement tool to allow your sales teams to go to market in a consistent and effective manner. So there's different things. So there's not necessarily generating new leads for you, but they're making you much more efficient and effective as an organization. And then once you've got you can bloat this as much as you need. There's, as I say, there's tools out there that help you support managing all of this. There's project management tools. There's communication tools that you can use to keep yourselves all connected with it in the business. Okay, so where does data play in the role of marketing, the marketing cycle? Well, we need it at every stage, really. When we're planning, when we're first looking at running campaigns, we need to understand who are our existing customers, where they reside, what is our total addressable market? What do we not know? What do we not have today that we should be acquiring? Then, once we've put the planning in place, then we have to implement this. We have to pull it together. We have to build campaigns. We have to integrate potentially different platforms, bring data together to really enhance what we're trying to do. And once we've done that, then we move on to actually executing our campaigns. And again, data plays a very important part here, because it will allow us to do much more personalized campaigns, much more targeted, and and give you that level of granularity that perhaps I know a more traditional email platform wouldn't be able to do. So there's lots of really great features in Marketo around allowing you to drill down, personalize, optimize some of those campaigns, but your data has to reflect that and reflect it accurately. You also need a sort of plan B. So when the data is not there, don't just exclude them from the campaign, but you default back to a generic messaging and positioning, because they're still relevant. It's just you can't get to them as targeted as you'd like. Once you've run the campaigns, again, you're going to understand how that data has performed, what's worked, what's not worked, and also begin over time to begin a predictive element, so that you begin to understand what's worked, what's not worked, and therefore you can look to predict what might be an opportunity in future. And we'll hear a little bit from one of our clients this afternoon about how they are using some of the predictive elements in data to really take their marketing to the next level. And once it's all done, we need to adapt and repeat, because marketing is not a single campaign. It's not a point-to-point solution. It's an ongoing cycle. And we sort of refer to these as sort of ongoing, always-on frameworks, where your marketing is constantly being changed. Now, yes, you change the content, you change the messaging, but the campaigns are continuing. You're continuing to nurture people. Historically, and still today in many cases, marketing is driven by the company's internal budget cycle. So you get a budget, you run a campaign, budget runs out, you stop the campaign. We need to move to a much more of an always-on cycle, because in the B2B world, you're probably working or you could be working with sales cycles of 18 months, longer than your budget cycles. So you need to be able to continue that nurturing beyond the budget cycle, which typically would be a year. It's quite hard to justify, quite hard to get round, quite hard to get your CFO's approval when you say, actually, I'm going to spend this money this year, but you won't get any return until 18, 20 months. You might not have a job, but we need to start thinking that way. Okay. So how do we actually visualize a lot of this? Well, often it's with things like with dashboards, which can look across multiple tools, multiple platforms to bring all this together. But a dashboard is a bit like a puppy. It's for life. It's not just for Christmas. And so when we think of dashboards, it's not something that you can produce in a PowerPoint. It should be something that's interactive, that is pretty much real time, that allows you to recognize where issues might be and be able to drill down into them to actually understand what's actually going on. So David, a little bit later this afternoon, is going to take you through some dashboards, some examples of where we've pulled together multiple sources of data to produce something that people can begin to rely on. And then you can do it in a way that allows you, the relevant people, access to these as they need it, either on their laptop or on their phone. And so it's not dependent on the fact that they haven't got a Marketo license or they haven't got a Salesforce license. It's actually something that they can use in front of them. So think about dashboard. Actually, I don't like the word dashboard. Something like executive information solution. Maybe we bring that one back. It won't cost you 150,000, I promise. Okay. Right, I'm going to swear now. I do apologise. I'm going to use a phrase we haven't heard too much of this year, but we heard an awful lot of last year. And I just want to sort of, give you our view of how GDPR has affected the world of marketing data, particularly in the B2B space over the last sort of 18 months or so. So what we saw back in May last year was a real scourge of marketing databases. Some of our clients literally tore out everything bar the most recent and active data. Others took a little bit more of a slower look and decided to just yes, remove the obvious bad data, but actually hold on to what we've got, because we've actually built this database up over a period of time. It's cost us a lot of money, and we're not sure how this is all going to pan out. So 18 months later, in the B2B world, this is very much B2B, and it's a UK-centric view. It might be an EU-wide approach and law, but believe me, it's not implemented in the same across 27 different nations. And so again, it very much depends on where your target audience is. But we've seen over the last few months a sort of more of a warming to looking to acquire third-party data once again. So last year, didn't know anybody who bought third-party data lists. That's beginning to change, and in the UK, there's a few vendors offering GDPR-compliant data for sale. And I think that's an approach that you could look at. Be very, very careful with the T's and C's and make sure that the onus and responsibility is with those vendors if something goes wrong. Because people have got to live. They've got to grow the number of leads they have. They've got to grow their marketing databases, and you can't just do that just through purely telephone cold calling or for waiting for inbound leads to come in to hit your website. The thing that has changed, and we've certainly noticed, is that there's much more rigor around the way that information security management is done within the marketing organization. And as ourselves as data processors, we've had to take a much more rigorous approach to how we manage our data on behalf of you as well, because that is something that is at risk. So the risk of being fined very heavily for sending an erroneous email is probably still relatively small. The risk of being fined very, very heavily for a data breach is pretty high. And so that's where we've seen the real changes from a GDPR perspective. And marketeers and people working in the marketing industry have had to step up to support that, as those information security management rigor that perhaps maybe only the IT department dealt with before. And so, for example, for ourselves, we're going through ISO 27001, which is the cyber and information security information standard, because that's the right thing to do for you as our clients. Finally, digital marketing. It's here to stay. As marketeers, we have a responsibility to own and manage and grow and nurture that marketing data on behalf of our organizations. Because although it doesn't actually appear on the balance sheet, it may well be one of your organization's biggest assets. And we know there's many an organization who's built their goodwill on the back of a very good marketing database. With that, I think that's me. Thank you very much indeed. Now hand back to Phil.